This is great. I really don't have a whole lot to talk about other than my next slide. Oh, that's the password. Thank you to everybody that has helped out and participated and come to the meetings and just has really been involved with helping us out. We really do appreciate everybody just kind of participating and listening to me ramble on and on for all my meetings. So thank you so much, and hope you guys have a great year next year when the OT1 is taken on. For those of you who don't know, Caitlin is going to be taking over as the president. And then Katie is going to be her vice president. Catherine's going to stay on as the treasurer, and then Brianna is going to be the secretary. And then we have Sam who's taking over Jill's spot as the OTAC representative. So congrats to them, and I'm sure you guys will do a great job next year. But we are so lucky today. We get to have 3 people come and talk to us about interviewing and jobbing and like how to apply for jobs and all that great stuff that we're all going to need. So I'll let you guys introduce yourselves if you'd like.
I'm Amy Wabi, and I'm the adjunct for the pediatric lab. And I have a private practice in Littleton, and then we just opened a second branch.
My name is Mariah Runkle. I'm a occupational therapist. I own a small business in the diverse business. We do pediatric outpatient occupational therapy, physical therapy, and speech. And I had a very unique opportunity of purchasing the business that I was working for about 2 years ago. So I did that, about 10 team members. And speech is a separate business. We work really closely in the same office. And so bringing back memories very, very close to me. I've been out of school for about 4.5, 5 years. So not too long, but it's very cool to be here. Thanks for having me.
Hi, I'm Hannah Green. I'm the physical therapist at Children's Hospital. I was a student at Regis and graduated and hired on there. I was hired as just a staff PT, and then about a year ago, I attempted my supervisor role to supervise 13 PTs at two locations. Still PTs.
Can we all hire people? So I think, all of us had a little bit that we were going to say about like interviewing and hiring, but mostly we just wanted you to have the opportunity to ask questions, since a lot of you are going to be in that situation really quickly here. So, I think one of the things that I was really excited about is, I have a very small business that's a startup, and Mariah has more of an established business, and then Hannah obviously works for the Children's Hospital, so we've got 3 really different settings. And for me, what I'm looking for when I interview someone is someone who's realistic and understands what they're interviewing for. That when you might have an idea that you really want to work in this non-traditional, kind of maybe a little bit just different setting than what you've maybe encountered before. But a lot of times those businesses are really small, and there's a reason that like the more traditional clinical model works and continues to work, and it's because of productivity and productivity standards. So for me, what I'm looking for is a lot of times someone who really understands what they're trading off for kind of being in a little bit non-traditional setting. Sometimes that's full-time hours and benefits. With me, it is always full-time hours and benefits so far. But so that's one of the first things that I like people to be able to explain to me is why do you want to work here, and not just it's really exciting or I love animals, but more like I've planned this out and I know how I'm going to supplement my income, and I'm planning on having 2 jobs, and that's something I look for, is that sense of reality of what the job is going to look like, what you're going to be looking for.
Okay, cool. So this whole process of actually hiring people is very interesting. Well, I was on the other side. Okay, make sure my resume is ready, and I'm pregnant, and I'm going to a meeting, and I'm going to get a job, and I'm going to get together, and I'm do whatever I have to do to pay off my house. So I totally get that. Now I'm on the other side, and I'm really like taking a look at, okay, how do I find other types of members that I want? And one of the things that I've really done is I think it's really important to do this as an interview, so I just time for yourself, is know who you are. And I think it really piggybacks off what Amy just said, because if you don't, and really state your intentions, then that makes sense for a real life rather than exactly what is this person applying for. So just being super clear, and being super clear in your resume. So a lot of people like a lot of talking about resumes. I do utilize resumes, and I utilize them in order to take a look at your qualifications to see if they actually match the job posting that I put out there. My job postings that I put out there are really intentionally designed in order to weed out the people that don't like to do. And so read everything in there, and if you match that qualification, you submit your resume. And take a look at your resume and make sure that it's intentional, it's clear, it's sequential, really looking to see where your field works were, what did you really do in those settings and stuff. So if your resume then matches the qualifications, what I'm looking for, then I contract with an HR person who then does a phone screening. And I think phone screenings are really useful for managers, I've learned, because I have to protect you from myself. And I will engage you in an interview that will just like last forever, because I want to tell you all about myself and I want to hear all about you, and we just really want to be intentional and interview each other purposefully. So I have set up a phone screening. And I think that having an HR person to really say, okay, this is what the job entails, and really understanding, I want to work in pediatrics, I want to be part of an innovative team, and thinking about those things and how you can portray that to that person who maybe isn't exactly an occupational therapist, but understands exactly what the basis of. If my HR says, yeah, we really like, she really fits all of these basic questions, and it was like 20 minutes maybe. She will send all those notes to me, and then I schedule an on-site interview for 30 minutes, and we have some scheduled questions that we talk about, but then it's kind of open talk, and I really learned to shut up. And I really want you to talk to me and tell me, why is it that you want to be a part of my team? Why is it that you want to be, how do you want to take self therapy to the next level? And how are you going to integrate our team who are really innovative and want to educate the community about occupational therapy and that sort of thing. So anyhow, so I think that, I don't know, just like Emily said, you be really intentional about what you're doing and understand, how you want to move forward and try to prepare forward in all those situations. So there's quite a bit to it. And I learned a lot about myself, trying, the hiring.
So all of that.
And that's how we take 10 minutes.
Yeah. And so I would say, being on your side of it, it seems like it was like yesterday, but I was like, oh God, okay, here we go. And I think the thing that I was most nervous about when I was in your shoes was like, I don't have experience. Like, here are all these postings who say this much experience desired, and we as employers, I don't think that unless they're asking for like over 5 years or something along those lines, don't let that completely deter you, because I think, and we can kind of touch on more specifics, but I think you guys have a lot of important things coming out of school that you can offer. And so, I just want to touch on that. Like, don't let that completely deter you, but being intentional, being smart on your resume in terms of what you choose to list, what were your field work experiences, what were some unique things about your field work experiences that you were able to, test out, get some exposure to. Those are things that people like to see, like, oh, they really like these most of what experiences they have had. So I always look at that. I never am completely like, no, I can't handle undergrad unless I know my team can support undergrad. So it's unfair to you, and it's unfair to the team, and it's unfair to the patient to, hire somebody that we're not going to be able to support. So just know that I just wanted to make sure I said that. But within children's, just because we are so big and it's a big name, I can be pretty picky and ready. And things that I feel like I can give you 2 really good examples. Today, on the cover letter, I did a phone interview with someone who said she's really excited and passionate about working at this one specific clinic. And I was like, so tell me more about that. And she just gave me this like super vague answer, and I was like, but like specifically, like why our clinic? There's all kinds of things she could have done to prepare to back up that statement. Like, we have 6 experienced neuro people on our team, and she really wants to grow her skills in that area. None of that came out of her mouth. And so I was like, kind of not really going to pursue this much further. It was pretty quick
like I'm headband, I'm very limited. So if you're gonna say something in your cover letter about how you are really excited about the opportunity to work at this facility, if you have all this passion around it, you better be prepared to say why. Because anymore, there's all kinds of resources with the internet, and you can pick up the phone and call people even and say, you know, what specific clinics do you guys offer? Like, I'm interested in this, that's something you guys offer. You can do a little research or homework before your interview even. And that is, when people are able to do that, like, we pay attention, we notice that. The other thing I would say is, again, that with especially news ads, we like to hear how, we acknowledge that you can only have the experience you have. Like, that is not a negative, it is what it is. But the thing I really like to see people do is translate, when I was in this situation, this is something I learned, this is what I did, this is how I changed what I did, and as a consequence, I now think about this in this way. So you can make and draw connections that kind of help us get to know you as a person, get to know your clinical reasoning, get to know how you process information, and that is everything that we are looking for. I would also say that being genuine is so important. Everybody knows it. Like, I just acknowledge that everybody's nervous, and that's fine, and that's okay. But when you're sitting there telling me that your weaknesses are that you work too hard, or you do so much, and it's just, I'm like, I just don't care about you anymore. You know, like, getting to know you as a person, getting to know what led you to be interested in this field, why you're passionate about it. You know, if you have some career goals, and it's okay to say, like, you know, beyond, I really have a hard time thinking beyond 3 years. And so I just, you know, my goals are kind of focused on that, but I know I really want to be, you know, the best therapist I can be, and, you know, it's hard for me to think beyond that. That's an honest answer. And in an interview I did for my position now, I remember they asked me, like, where do you see yourself in a year? And I'm like, in this position. I'm like, I don't know what you want me to say. I'm like, I see myself being better at it than I am. Like, I'm like, I know what you're looking for right now. And everybody laughed, but that was like my honest answer instead of like making some kind of a lofty goal. So I think if people like to see that you're a human, that you care, and then those characteristics that you allow them to see about yourself, you can extrapolate that into what kind of therapist you are. So I think that's but if you guys have questions, happy to.
I mean, we'll keep talking. Yeah, we can all talk. But do you guys have any questions specifically about interviewing or resumes that you want to like kick this off with?
Just to expand, you were talking about really like for new grads, knowing that we got the most out of our level 2 field works. Like, I just wondered if you could expand on that a little bit more for like what opportunities we should be looking for, because some of us are not ready to go out on our level 2.
Yeah, I mean, anything, honestly. I like the people that you can tell they were little sponges when they were out there. You know, they like really were able to, you know, you're in an inpatient facility. Did you observe surgery? Did you, you know, like try to see different clinics? Did you, you know, what did you do to kind of make the most of your experience? And that shows that you're a go-getter. Conversely, if that is not an option for you, you know, being able to share that. And, you know, making them say, like, no, this is a really rural community, and they didn't have, you know, a lot of access to some of these things that I was hoping they would, but, you know, I was, you know, not bashing that, but saying, like, this is the reality of that situation, because we might not know, like, what hospitals are, you know, what things they are able to provide.
That lack of that experience made me realize how passionate I am about it, and how much I need to read about it, and how much I want to be in that setting. So you can turn a negative into a positive. Yeah. And I think it's like, I don't, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but like, no matter what somebody says, what I want to see is that they can use that to explain why they would be an asset to my company.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How are you going to bring that and add value to what I'm doing here? You know? Sorry.
Like, does that answer your question?
Yes.
Like, just really like seeing that you made the most of it, and you were, you know, a go-getter, and you really tried to, you know, get the most out of your experience. I think that's really good.
And I think what you were saying about not bashing too, that's something I really watch out for. Because the reality is not everyone's gonna have a super sunshine unicorn level 2. Like the odds of you maybe having one that was less than perfection are pretty good because people are different and the setting might not be your passion or whatever. But what I want to see is like you can maybe get an idea that maybe someone didn't really love one of their level 2s, but that doesn't come out of their mouth and that what they're saying about it is respectful and professional and positive. Because I think that leads over into like, if you don't stay with me forever, how are you going to represent me to the community when you leave?
One of the questions that I ask in my 30-minute interview is, what can you bring to the table to take step therapy to the next level? And I think that kind of piggybacks to exactly what they're saying, because I do interview a lot of new grads. I actually welcome new grads onto my team for a lot of different reasons. But and I put that in my job posting. And I'm really looking for, typically with new grads, when you go back to your level 2, and they say, okay, well, in my level 2, I learned to do this, and I learned to do this, and I designed this program, and I know how to be innovative with, all the knowledge that I've acquired, and I can demonstrate that to you, and I can bring that to your clinic, and I can bring, highly skilled OT and the things that I've learned to your team. And I also look for those, of course, with kind of that reality and that down to earth. I'm also looking to continue to learn and that sort of thing. Always looking for somebody who's also continuing to learn, because we're all continuing to learn. And so we want to have somebody who's got that good balance.
The other thing that we need to think about is that, like, when I was in college, I got a sales job by referencing my skills as a Girl Scout, Girl Scout cookie. I mean, like, I had 0 sales experience up until that point, and I was able to reference something, and that sounds like crazy, but this made them go laugh. But I mean, I was like, that was actually sort of applicable to that question, so I'm just gonna go with it and see what happens. And I think similarly, in terms of clinical reasoning and those kind of things, when you're out on your field work, so if you have like a good learning experience where you're like, write it down. Like, keep it in your memory so that you're not completely like in an interview just like grasping at straws. Like, you have a couple of concrete examples in your head of like, this was a hard patient, this is what I did, this is who I talked to, this is what I read about, and this is, this is how it ended up. And I think that shows, a level of preparation also, and just reflection in like yourself and your practice patterns up until that. So.
You totally answered my question without me asking. And it kind of piggybacked on Brittany's, but just like about how if we're applying for a job and our field works don't necessarily match up, like I don't have a field work in acute care at all, and I go for an acute care job, but extrapolating what I've learned to use my
Yeah, I definitely think that's right.
Just like if you don't have any experience in the setting, but I guess you can then speak to why it made you passionate.
And I think when all else fails, what I love is when therapists go back to activity analysis. So like, I just hired someone. I mean, a lot of you guys that are headed out to your fieldwork already know this, but I hired someone that is has been out of the pediatric world for probably 10 years, but she's wanting to get back into it, and she's been having a really hard time getting a position, getting a foothold, because she doesn't have the experience, and she feels like nobody wants to take the time to mentor her. And where we matched up was when I asked her, like, how are you going to do this if you don't have this experience? She went back to the basic tenets of OT, the practice framework, how to do activity analysis. You get those skills on your fieldwork regardless of the setting. So taking your fieldwork and saying, this is a time that I really had to think creatively, and you do that in pediatrics, or you do that in hand therapy, and this is how I did that. So, I mean, any of your fieldworks are valuable to any position that you're going for. The other place that we matched up is that I'm a small practice that can't offer full-time immediately, but there's a slow build-up. So then I could kind of entice her, recognizing her as a great employee, potentially. I could entice her by saying, you can get a lot of mentorship because you'll have one kid, and then you'll have 3 hours of discussion with me afterwards, and that's how I'll pay you, and meet your hours, and that's how you won't be overwhelmed. So I think what I'm trying to say is use use what you've got for sure, but then also just make sure you have a good connection with the person that you're talking to and that really is a mutually beneficial match. And you guys are totally in a position where you can say, this is not a good match for me. You know, it's not just on the employer.
Oh, absolutely. You guys are interviewing each other. I think it's a big red flag when I'm interviewing somebody and at the very end, I have like 10 questions. And I was saying, you know, what questions do you have for me? And they go, oh, nothing. It's such a turn on. Yeah. And so like, I love it when they're like, oh, thank you so much for asking. I have this question and this question and this question. And that really tells me that they're really thinking about, okay, is this a really good fit? Because if we want it to be a good fit, because we're going to be working together and we want you to be happy. And so, you know, we really start saying, feel that out, and you need to know that too.
I have a question for you guys. Let me think of how to word it for a second. I've gotten some feedback that students have been told, or new graduates have been told not to ask about compensation and not to ask about mentorship, that those are overdone questions. And I'm wondering how you guys feel about that? And then I
would be concerned if a new grad or really anybody didn't ask about mentorship, because there's a big question about why do you want to be on the team? And if I don't get some sort of answer, like, you know, I really do well on a team, I'm looking for a team, I'm looking for collaboration, it's something that I highly, highly value, is that we have a team meeting that we have every single week, and I require you to be there. And if you're not looking for that, a type of mentorship or somebody who is, you know, just bouncing ideas off, you're not really looking for that. So I think it's really important, especially for my team, and what I'm looking for is to say, I'm looking for mentorship, you know, to build my skills. And then as far as compensation goes, as long as it's not the very first thing out of your mouth, I don't think I know that it's very important, because I graduated, I was single, I was a winner. I have to have health insurance. I get that, and so do you. And if you don't, if your employer doesn't provide it, then you have to pay for it by yourself, and I totally understand what that's like. So I think that I know that it's important to the person, and I think that if it's something towards the end, like when I say, you don't have any questions for me, then you can say, what sort of benefits do you offer? Then I can definitely go in and say, thank you for asking. This is typically what we offer, full-time and part-time, and that sort of thing. If you go in and say, okay, well, you know, specifically the dollar amount and how much your benefits are, and what's your deductible, and all of this other stuff, then that's kind of gonna make me not so much. But I understand that you need to know what you're getting.
You guys heard that before? That you shouldn't have?
I've heard, it was like on my level one, so like the rehab director was like, that's been the mentorship piece has been like the most over asked question. He's like, it's like being like so redundant that like it's almost like not appealing, because it's like you can come up with another question besides like how do you offer mentorship, but
I guess you could ask.
and I think maybe it depends on the setting too. Like it was a hospital. I don't
maybe
know.
you could just ask, you know, what sort of work environment is it? Is it a teamwork type of environment? How many people on your team? Do you have team meetings? You know, maybe that way, because you can, if you're worried about saying what sort of mentorship are you going to provide me, maybe they don't like that, because that's them saying, oh, we're going to have to provide more to you compared to maybe some other applicants. But maybe you're just really looking for like that team where you can bounce ideas off of someone, or maybe you could say, what type of supervisor do you have in place, or something like that. One of the things I also ask is, what type of supervisor do you have? Or do you look for, what's your perfect supervisor? Maybe asking those types of probing questions, because that'll give you some more information on how maybe they would provide mentorship. And then particularly, you're not going to have like, here's your mentor and here's a student, but you'd be like on a team and be able to go get some of that guidance.
Oh, no, you're fine. You're fine. It's just really interesting, because I would be appalled if you didn't ask about mentorship. Like, I would, that's like you owning, like, I am a new grad. And like, to be really honest, I don't know if anybody's told you this, your first 3 years are like, they're rough. You can fall apart. Like, you are learning you're seeing all these different kinds of people, you're independent. Like,
for you to be just like flailing around, like trying to figure that out on your own, like that's not a good thing for you. So almost, if somebody is defensive about that, I wouldn't want to work there. So that's just advice for you guys, because I strongly believe that if you are going to be successful in your career, you need mentors, and you need mentors all the way through. It's not like you just need them with regrets. And we actually had a 2-hour meeting about this today, how we're going to beef up our mentorship program and you know, really be able to support people who need different kinds of mentors, like precepting versus actual like performance issues versus like just wanting to develop a skill set. So I would love for people to ask us about a mentorship program, and it definitely would be something we should shy away from. I think in terms of compensation, so the formatting of the way that we do interviews is usually I will call and do a phone screening. We have specific program coordinators within our teams who are content specific, and they would usually call and interview as well, and then do a team interview. And so that team interview is kind of that last, like, do you have any final questions kind of thing. I would not recommend in a team interview bringing up compensation, because people look at that differently, and I think if you have really understanding, you know, we try to help people understand the difference between like my role in the program coordinator position, where it's like I would be the person, we try to help you understand, like my job is to onboard you, hire you, and deal with all of that negotiation piece and everything. So I would hope that if you had questions about it, you would ask at my phase of things, but sometimes people don't. And, you know, they may spit it out as up to the wrong person or whatever, but just, I would discourage you from doing it in a team setting. That's my only big piece of advice. And really, like you said, there's a really respectful way of getting at, I mean, we understand, like, you have to eat, you have to pay your loans, and this is, and, you know, walking into my first job I ever had, you know, it was this strange pay structure, and then, like, once I proved myself, then I got a little bit more, like, it was strange. And so I think kind of understanding, like, what you're getting yourself into, that's smart on your part. And it would almost be a little odd if you do it. Now, I would also go back and say, there is no real way for you, like, you can Google, like, what are some general, like, pay ranges by state. They're usually not right. So just know that, and don't put too much weight in it, but I think it's a very fair question, like, what is your starting range? And, you know, how often are you reviewed, and how often are you considered? And I mean, those are all fine questions, that I think kind of having a general rule of not going in with like, well, this is how much I need, like, that's kind of a little bit, because it may just not be possible. Like, and I think we're all under different constraints. Healthcare continues to change, continues to dictate things that are beyond our control. So just being kind of, if you're able to be flexible and not too abrasive in how you ask your questions, we're usually able to, you know, provide you with what you need. But yeah, ask a mentorship question. That's what you're best at. Always.
I interviewed a candidate that I was waiting to ask questions. Are you going to ask? Are you going to ask? And finally, I was like, well, as a new graduate, how do you anticipate? You know, a lot of what we're going to be doing, I'm going to be, you know, sending you up to this other branch, and you're going to be by yourself. So how do you anticipate getting your mentorship needs met? And this candidate said, I think I'm good. I just passed the board, and I'm like, no, I think I'm good. And I'm like, holy Moses, I'm not putting you in with kids by yourself. Like, I think I'm almost relieved and excited when I find someone who can genuinely and honestly relate their limitations as a practitioner, you know, and that's something that I'm trying really hard to always keep as part of myself too, to be like, yeah, I don't know, like in lab, I don't know, Rachel's a better person to ask that question, you know, let's ask someone else, that's not my wheelhouse. And I think I'm really attracted to people that can be genuine about that. I don't expect people to know everything. I really hate that question about what are your weaknesses. Like,
I do too. I have a great better question. I have a great better question. Here's my better question. Is if you could purchase a skill, what would it be? I like that one. And everybody's kind of like taking back their
Yeah.
But think about that, like, we need to buy a skill, and if you should like get it and have it, you know, it's kind of, and I really like the way people, I really love to see how you're gonna answer that, because that really tells me, you know, do you really know yourself? You know, so.
Yeah. I think it does. It feels like, I think it feels like a trap. I think all of us have been asked. Have you guys all been
Yeah.
asked that? Like, what are your weaknesses? So
I'm honest, like, when
Yeah.
people ask me that, I'm like, I sometimes have a hard time being on time. I'm like, I really try and I'm getting better. I promise I will do my best. You know what I mean? And it's like, that's honest. And I've never not gotten a job because of being honest.
yeah,
So,
always be honest.
always be honest.
Yeah.
Or like, you know, for when I was a student, I was exposed to this and this. And I feel more comfortable with this. To be perfectly honest, I feel like I could hit the ground running a little more easily in this area. But I can see myself loving this group and wanting a little bit more mentorship. Is that something that you guys can provide over time or immediately or at some point? And just knowing that like, I actually do care about this, but I know I can for you to solve it over here, you know? And I think especially like, I'm just thinking about like OT, you guys have a lot of ground that you cover that falls within your wheelhouse. And like, if you got a little bit of exposure to feeding somewhere, and you were like, that is awesome, and I can see myself being good at that, but then it was like, you know, you apply to a position where they're doing like a lot of feeding expertise, you know, that's okay to own like, well, is there anything else in this role that you would be looking to fill, or is there a gap I could fill while I'm getting trained and up to speed in meetings? You know what I mean? To be able to show that you can be flexible and to acknowledge that there might be needs that aren't like perfectly described in the posting, you know, like this. Yeah. You can be flexible, I can be flexible. Yeah, that's very good.
You've given us a lot of really good details about interviews, and I just was wondering, really a lot of us are interested in pediatrics. I feel like a lot of us are just going to think pediatrics and all about it. And then as employers, what are some of the ways or some of the things you look for that tells you, oh, this person is actually like really interested in pediatrics, not like just playing with kids or, you know what I mean? Like what makes them stand out? Because, I mean, I'm interested in pediatrics as well, but
Yeah.
you know, because that's so general and so.
I spend a lot of time with the people that I'm interviewing. So I get a resume, we do a phone interview, we do a face-to-face interview, and then I usually require a ride-along. So when I'm doing home visits, I prefer home visits versus in the clinic because I like to see how people conduct themselves when we're in someone's house. That's probably the place that I have the most struggle kind of, I'm going to put this in a very dry businessy way, but controlling my brand. My name is my company. My brand is my name. I cannot have people representing me poorly in people's homes. And you would be surprised how easy it is to really pick out who seems very uninterested in what they're actually doing. Some people, I've interviewed someone that actually came out and told me, was like, I think I might be interested in pediatrics, but I don't really know, and and there's nothing wrong with that at all. But, you know, I think I might be interested in adults too. There's nothing wrong with that. However, if you're going into a situation with someone like me who is going to be sending you to people's houses, wants you to really pick up the ball and hit the ground running and have a lot of autonomy, and someone who's maybe a little bit interested in kind of helping to build a practice that maybe someday being a partner in a practice, and then who has very limited resources. I'm not part of a huge hospital complex. I'm myself with, you know, the equipment that I stuff into the backseat of my mom's car. So it's not really like what I'm thinking as a business owner is, what I'm thinking as a therapist and an educator is, I would love to snatch this person up and show them the wonderful world of peace, right? But what I'm thinking as a business owner is, what is my risk here? How much money am I going to spend to train this person? How much money am I going to spend when I lose them? Inevitably, they're going to decide peace is good for them. You know, so there's that I don't mind taking a risk, but what I really look for is someone who's coming in and showing me like, I'm a new grad, so your risk might be all the way up here, but here's what I'm gonna bring, and the reward for when this pays off for you is gonna be just as high as the risk you took. So I think what I'm really looking for is like verbally very clear reasons that you went into pediatrics in the first place. I'm also looking for very professional behavior. Even if you don't know for 100% that you only want to do pediatrics, even if you say like, I want to do it all. I want to do peds and I want to do adults and I want to do home care and blah, blah, blah. That's fine as long as you can really show me that your behavior is super professional, that you treat families with respect, that you can analyze an activity and come up with a good engaging treatment activity, and you're honest up front with me about the fact that you're gonna split your time. I don't wanna do, I just hired another therapist and she told me, I'm really happy at my current home health job. I don't wanna leave it. I just wanna supplement it with a pediatric job part-time. And she reiterated to me multiple times in the interview, because I was like, and there is an opportunity for growth or more hours. And she was like, well, I just want to remind you that I'm really, really happy at my other job. So I don't really want more hours than this. I was like, great. And I definitely heard you. I just want you to know that if that ever changes, we've got this opportunity. So I think clarity, professional behavior. I loved that girl. I loved the loyalty to the other job. I thought that was a beautiful thing. So we're all kind of looking for different things there, but that's what it is for me in like a startup. So, good.
I was just gonna say, look at yourself apart. I have a current situation right now, because I'm a small practice, I'm a little flexible. So if you're really interested in pediatrics, there's a lot of private practices and like popcorn other places. There's a lot of flexibility. Call them. I know maybe you never know if that's opportunity or not, but if I have somebody who reaches out to me, like calls me or sends me an email and says, hey, I looked you up and I'm doing my level 2 field work up at CSU. I'm out of state, but I'm planning on staying in Denver. Can I come and shadow at your clinic for free? And I just want to see what you're all about. It seems like really jive with my first level 2 field work. I really want to stay in peace. And I just want to get my foot in the door so I don't lose any of my skills. And she came in and we chatted for a little bit. She was very excited about being in my clinic. And she came, she shadowed on her own accord for like I think 3 full days before she actually did full-time back up the week before home. She finished her level 2. I remember her because she came to our team meetings. She was like a part of the conversation. She attended an in-service and did a lot of emails back and forth. And she just reached out to me and said, hey, I finished my level 2. I'm planning to graduate. Can I come down and see you again? I said, yeah, sure, you can come down and see me again. She's like, I'd love to shadow, one of your other therapists. And so she came down and shadowed, and we had like a mock interview. And I asked her some of the same questions, and she's going to be ready to be hired in July. And I'm not even going to go through the interview process because if she's ready and I've got the caseload, I'm bring her to work. Because she showed me the initiative. I know that she's passionate about what it is that she wants to do. She's already shown me some good patient relations and worked with some of our families because she took that initiative to take time out of her day to leave her family to be a part of our team. So that was really cool, and that really sticks in my mind. And I've had a handful of therapists and members who have done that. So if you have the ability to do some research, you can make contact with those people who are in charge of that, and they let you in the door, take absolutely take an opportunity to do that. And demonstrate all those things that Amy just said, that I'm very professional and that I show up and look like I'm ready to work and be a part of the team. So hopefully it'll all come together. She seems like she's great. A lot of
That's great.
Yeah.
I would not bank on that at a big hospital system, primarily because we get pulled a lot of different directions, and like even having like student observers is very challenging for us to find like therapists to match with. So I think I wouldn't bank on that necessarily. I think calling and just asking, that doesn't do any harm, but I wouldn't bank on it. We always try to get to the heart of whether or not people actually love children. I feel like that's a super important value at the Children's Hospital. And I think it's one of those things where we've done it a couple different ways. for somebody who we just replaced a really senior therapist, and it was of value to her to see how they did with her patients. So kind of a ride-along situation, but it was kind of like a very intense day of like, they came in, they did 2 hours of shadowing, and then interviewed with the team over lunch after they'd done all this pre-screening. And to see how they interact with kids, to see, like we would ask them, like, no, you just do your thing. Like, what would you do if you believe they're their impairments? How would you do it? I wonder if that would work as well in OT. Like, I'm very, over here, but I just in terms of like kids getting used to you, patient selection. I don't know that necessarily that would be something that the OTs would feel like would be super helpful because your whole session could go lost just by having somebody else in the room. But for us, we felt like that was really helpful. But I think really getting at, why do you love kids? Why would you want to work with kids over working with adults? Those are questions that if they don't ask you, tell them, like just to kind of hit on this, like I know, like why pediatrics, this is why. And if you have any life experiences that really drew you to pediatrics, it's a good time to talk about those. Like clinical rotations, if you had something that caused you to be like, I thought I wanted to work with adults, and I changed my mind because of this, I think those are good things to share. It just kind of goes back to like you as knowing yourself as a person, knowing what drew you, which is a field, which is specific to pediatrics. Like that's the stuff that make us feel like, okay, because there are, I believe there are pediatric therapists that don't really like children. And that is not who we want to hire. And they maybe don't realize that they come off as not liking children, but it's very hard for families to work with somebody who they feel like doesn't actually like their child or like childlike behaviors. And so we're really trying to screen that just from a patient satisfaction standpoint as much as possible. But if you don't get a chance to observe or do something hands-on, like we always try to ask those questions, and I would encourage you to speak to them as much as possible.
And I think, I've taken some level 2 students that really thought they wanted to do pediatrics, like came into it and were like, geez. And by the end of it, the one gal I had by the end of it, she was like, I stayed with this, and she really didn't. She wasn't bad, but she started realizing that she felt like she really liked all the cute kids. I like the cute ones, but then any of the more difficult children or the children that were harder to work with were so intense for her that it gave her more of a sense that that's not really what she wanted, and she ended up changing her mind. And she came across a little bit as a person who didn't like children. I think she did, yeah. But there was just that, like the frustration and not being able to think on the fly and keep things light and playful, and maybe this isn't the just right challenge. So I think we're always looking for that, like whether we're educating or, you're on a ride along, or even within your first couple months of work, that happens too. And I've hired people, and then within the first couple months, I'm like, oh boy, I really should have seen this person interact with kids more before. It wasn't just first aid jitters or interview nervousness. They're really struggling with just connecting with kids.
And that's a really hard thing because there are kids, kids on the spectrum, kids who have just, very limited communication skills. They are challenging. And I think if you have an opportunity to get out there and volunteer, the more exposure you have with those kids, the easier it's going to become. But I think it's something that is very hard for new grads in general because it's still hard. What am I doing? It's still very hard. So I think acknowledging that, but choosing to care for them and be there for them through whatever it is that's the hardest part. That's why we do this. That's why we love it. So I think just kind of being able to think through those experiences if you've had them and kind of speak to what kept you going through. Yeah. Those are good things here.
And that's not specific to kids. I think it's specific to any population that you want to work with. I think your employer just wants to know that it's really what you want to be doing. There's some kind of a heart behind that's why you wanted to do this. Yeah.
I have a question about resume writing and such. You guys kind of spoke a little bit about it, and like Creighton has taught us a way to formulate our resume. But how many pages? How much employment history do you like to see? Especially if you have like a lot of experience, like with patient care or anything prior to school. And it's like how much of that takes up your space versus your field works, especially if those are valuable or in the same setting. Like how do you delineate that? And or do you do like a curriculum vitae because we are in the research realm? Like what do you guys suggest, or is it different for each
field? So I'd love to know, so length, I don't care. Like if it's 10 pages, I really don't care. I might not read it all because I don't have the attention and focus for that. But I don't care how long it is. What I'm gonna notice is your spelling, your grammar. I'm gonna notice if your formatting is all over the place. Like I give up reading if the bullets don't make sense. Like there's a big bullet and then a couple little ones, like this other big bullet should have been under, like that kind of stuff. Formatting bothers me. So I want it to look polished, look nice. I don't care how long it is. As far as experience that you had before your field works, I kind of prefer for that to be like bullet pointed. And then if there's something really relevant, put it in your cover letter. I think the cover letter is really underestimated as a tool. Because when you get a resume as a hiring person, I don't want to speak for you guys, but for me at least, I can tell like that if it's a form letter that you are sending out to everybody and just changing the name in the letter. Yeah, I really like to see a well thought out letter. This is what I did. I know this person that worked with you, or I found you online and I love this about your website and the mission, and really give me a sense that you know what you're applying for and that you care about it. And then some of that I'd like to tell you a brief story. I used to work with this child, and these are the things that we did together, and this is how I really found this passion for pediatric OT. And I read the cover letter really carefully, and I put a lot of weight in it. So I don't know about you guys if you do that, but I think that's something that, I wouldn't say it's like a deal breaker for me, but if I get a form letter, it's like if you were on a dating site and you could tell that someone was just copy pasting the same thing for like 50,000 girls. I'm like, I don't know, maybe that's not the best approach. I'm married, if not dating. I do not have an online profile. Just for the record.
I would say for me, you can't go wrong with a cover letter. Cover letters are fine. I may not read them all. As a business owner, growing team, honestly, just not time to read it all. If there's like a complete gap in your resume, or say if you're applying from that state or something like that, then I would go to the cover letter and I would go do what's going on here. So I post a lot of my job on Indeed, and for there's a lot of out-of-state applicants, and so what I'm really looking for is what is your timeline, and is it worth my time to send you to HR? Is it worth my time to screen you? That sort of thing. Because as a business owner, unfortunately, I am on a timeline. We want to make sure we put the right person in place, but I can't blow this thing out 3 months, because you're going to be here in 3 months. So, I think having those types of details in your cover letter, if there's something to see like that, is really important. I rely heavily on that. If I don't have that cover letter, I may or may not send you to the next step because I'm not really sure what your intentions are. As far as actual resume, please write it in Word or DIP or PDF. I have gotten resumes in really weird formats. Like if it's a note, I'm just not going to read it. I've gotten resumes in notes. I've gotten resumes as PDFs, or not PDFs, as a JPEG or something. It's very bizarre and very weird. People do very weird things. So just to piggyback off exactly what Amy just said is put it in some sort of format that like everybody can open. I've gotten resumes that I can't even open. That's like I don't know if it's because it's coming from Apple. I don't know if it's because but that formatting is so important. That use of let me access, being able to access, especially if you're applying to, like I got my job that I currently have over Craigslist, so I had to email it to her. So it wasn't through Indeed that formatted everything nice. It was concerns with that. So I think that's important to know. And the flow, if I can read those main points, I like to see your education first and your field works, and then I do look at your past employment. I'm curious because I've got 3 jobs under my belt as an OT, but after that, I think there's a lot that I was a rehab aide, so I was a PT rehab aide, an OT rehab aide, and they kind of give me a little bit of insight, like, oh, you've been working for this for a little while, are you gearing your life up? But that's not like an end all be all. If not, then that's fine, but I do tend to peek, and if there are things that pop out, definitely emphasize them. Like, I was an OT rehab aide for 3 years. Alright, so I could do that. Yeah, that totally makes sense to me, and I get that. Yeah.
And it's meaningful.
It's very meaningful, you know that you really love just this field in general. So
You
Yeah,
had exposure and you went to school anyway, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. I would say,
I'm done.
I rarely get really good cover letters. I think partly it's because of our HR system. It's kind of confusing because I think there's like a section where you could write something, but then you can also you don't have to keep going, and then you can input your resume all in, or you can attach it. And so I don't get a ton of good cover letters, but I have gotten some lately. And, being able to say, this one person was saying, like, I'm at this job and I love this job, but I want to be close to my family in Colorado. And so you're looking at, like, I'm not trying to get out of something. I'm trying to, this is a value to me. And so being able to speak to that is nice. It's not just a can. I mean, she could have sent that to, a lot of different people, but I think that was something where it shows me, you're not just trying to, bounce from job to job. This is something that you put thought into. It is very hard for me to get past spelling errors. I struggle, and I've had talks with my supervisor about what is it in me that is so irritated by it. And she's like, it's looking over that. I'm like, no, but it's attention to detail. And it's hard for me to get past that. I used to send my resume to my assistant editor and have her, completely look through it and give me feedback on everything. So that's just a big kind of formatting. I understand that there can be some computer things that are beyond your control, but it is really nice, especially if it's a harassment or something. But in terms of experience, I just want to echo what Maria said. If you have stuff that is really relevant, now the 2 years you worked at Burger King in high school, I don't really care. You know what I mean? Make it, if it's relevant and specifically volunteer experience, or if you had an opportunity to take a course on one of your field works and you want to include that in your education, and professional memberships you're a part of, conferences you've attended, those are all really good things to show your devotion at an early level to the profession. So all good things. And I think even camps you worked at, things where you're able to showcase some of your experience there, because that adds breadth to a little. I don't like super long resumes though. I will say that. I feel like you can pretty much say everything you need to say. In terms of your fieldwork experiences, having a few bullet points of these were my big takeaways. That's usually sufficient, because you're gonna hopefully have a follow-up conversation where you can expound upon them. You don't want to use it all the way. It's not well, you know what I mean? Having
you might not read it anyway.
So yeah.
I read every word of those.
Do you really?
Oh man, I tell you what, I don't. I go through
Yeah.
all those big things pop out.
Yeah, the big, I think.
But that's okay.
Yeah.
That makes you super.
I would be more like you. Yeah.
Put balls on time.
So I think it's a good illustration of kind of what we were trying to get at today, and the importance of knowing who you're interviewing with, because we're all looking for really different things. Yes, I'm very busy, but I also don't get a ton of resumes. I don't, because when I post, I specifically post for a part-time position. So it's a big weed out. So I may get, I think this last position that I posted, I got 5 resumes over the span of 2 months. So I mean, it's little, because if people are reading on Indeed.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, I use Indeed. But, what I'm looking for
what you would want to cater your resume to look like for someone like me who's said it's a small but growing practice in a non-traditional setting with a part-time position, you're going to want to put something completely different together than Hannah's open for her part.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing I was gonna say is that if you know that you're specifically interested, so I don't know if I believe other children's hospitals are kind of going in this direction. If you know that you're passionate about a specific content area, your cover letter is a really good place to highlight that. If you are really interested in the ortho hand side of things, and you're posting, or read the job description also. That was another thing I wanted to say. Because they will, a lot of you might have to really dig this in, and that's just the nature of posting with bigger institutions. They have a lot of upfront stuff. But usually it'll say if there's a content specific area that they're really looking for. If you have an interest in it, make sure you talk about that in your cover letter, and kind of try to highlight if you have any exposure to it. Because we, like I said, I can be picky and I can. So if you, I had a guy that had one field work that was 10 weeks long in pediatrics, but he's got all this stuff that points me towards an ortho position when I need a neuro position. I sent him an email and said, I'll have to go on somebody else, but I'm not even going to call you, because it's not a good use of, and is that because it wasn't, I get people who know it's not always abundantly clear what they're applying to, and they just see oh, I have a children's hospital position, and they just go for it. And so we recognize that that's just the nature of the beast, but I think if you have a specific interest in it, that will at least cue them to be ooh, they actually know what they're applying for, so that's important. And just kind of know for the bigger institutions, we tend to try and hone in when we need an SI person, a PD person, somebody that's, speech, they're getting ready to hire for non-language communication, that is so specific. And they are going to be reading through all of these general practice and just very general speech therapists to try to find out probably one or two people who actually have fun. So,
yeah, they definitely read the job description. Oh my gosh, I got a couple of applicants. They were psychologists applying to my job. I'm it clearly states pediatric occupational therapist. There's just people out there that don't read the job description, and I'm not going to even open the resume. So that's just very weird.
Then do you guys use LinkedIn to screen look at
I
applications?
do not. I have heard that that's a choice.
I stalk everybody. I stalk you for any social media.
I guess, really.
I use Indeed. Well, to post to, or to look at people.
To look for, to look at people.
Oh, wow.
Do you look at, if I get your name on a resume, the first thing I do is see if you're, I don't care what's on your profile. Is it private? If I can get on Facebook and see that your Facebook profile is private, I'm not really asking for the password or anything, but I've had people apply for OT positions and my office. Oh, I wish I could put up a picture of the gal that applied for the office administrator position. It was shocking. I couldn't even put it up on the screen without blushing. But you'd be very surprised at, what you find out with a simple Google search of your name. And I do look, and it's not that, I don't need to micromanage, I don't need to know what you're doing in your personal life, but I am intensely invested in making sure that what you're going to represent to the community is okay for my image and for my business.
Agreed, and same here as well. And I run most of my internet presence for step therapy is through Facebook right now. We don't have an actual steptherapy.com, which we're working on. So if you're going to be a part of that, and if you're going to share my brand on your page because you liked Because I Step Therapy, I need to make sure that you're not. And again, we all have these fun, pictures and things, but it has to jive, So I do, I will definitely. You guys on my Bloomberg.
And I do occasionally look for people on LinkedIn. I've never really looked for an OT on LinkedIn. But I'm trying to find a music therapist, and I don't really know how to go about finding one. So that was where I started, was LinkedIn. So I do know people use LinkedIn for
Or job
therapists.
postings.
But I've never
both,
yeah,
Yeah, you can for job postings. But I kind of feel like LinkedIn is like, it's like a professional platform, and so I feel like, and it's not really widely used among everybody, my customers.
Yeah, I feel like it's more
so-
like a business world thing and it hasn't like reached into like healthcare as much, or at least from what I've seen, but.
I think it's reached more into, in the PT world, into private practice. Which is, I have tons of friends that are in school with that are like asking me to add the link, and I never even look at it. I get lots of because I feel a little serious for my job. I'm really interested in like, I don't know, I don't feel this need to be a part of it. I don't look at that, but if I take you to the point of like, if I'm bored and I have a minute and I'm like, I'm curious, like seriously, I will Facebook talk to you. And but again, that's not usually, I feel like I never find anything that's like a deal breaker. Like this girl was interviewing her, she's running pictures with her picture. I'm like, well, your butt is quite busy. You know what I mean? Like, I don't, that's like all, I've never found anything like, okay, real or dirt, yeah. What? But most people do present themselves in such a normal, nice, normal way. So it's never been like, I never really think to do it until like the very end. Like, I don't try to rule out crazy. Like, yeah, but
We came about people too that know who you are, and so it'll tell me on my profile that you're near me, so I can see you if you don't have that.
Just set it to private, that's all I really care. Like, I don't care if you're partying, like, I don't care what we're going to do private, like, just set it to private, so that I know that, because I have clients that friend us on Facebook, or request friends, like, have send out friend requests, which I think is kind of a weird boundary issue.
they get upset if you don't accept.
Yeah, right, so then you, yeah,
Strange.
but if you end up connected with someone that that maybe like you're seeing their kid or you used to see their kid, I just want to know that you know how to manage your controls there. Can you say this person's an acquaintance and give them a limited profile, or are they going to see all your dirt? We live in weird times. Weird things that we have to think about. So on that note too, in professionalism, I just want to throw out there, like, I know this is great. I have high expectations. Like, I know all of you would. I've had people come on ride-alongs with me and then like pull out their cell phone and start texting when we were with families. Don't ever do that, ever. Like, if you have to do something, excuse yourself. Like, I'm really sorry, I have to do this quickly. I apologize. Acknowledge that you realize it's not the right way to do things. Don't pull out your phone in an interview. Don't pull out your phone when you're riding along. And I'm obviously very casual. I have to be because of the nature of my practice. And sometimes I get resumes from people who know me personally. They've either ridden along with me, or they did observation to get into OT school, or they did a rotation with me. I have put in a lot of, I've put in a lot of time, money, effort, education, continuing education to get to this point. And I earned the jeans and cowboy boots. So what I really
not know that you
I'm kind of joking. I'm joking.
Yeah, you have earned your credit because jeans are not allowed in my clinic.
That's right.
But I do like we wear.
And that's something that when I hire somebody, I'm like, you know what, you can dress it down a little. You can wear jeans, you can wear, here's the dress code, but I expect you to get in the mud and play, and we've got chickens, and I don't want you to ruin nice clothes. So when you go for that interview, it doesn't matter what the person, like if you know that it's a more casual setting, it doesn't matter. If you still, I would really encourage you to really dress up and show that person that even if it's nothing more than a statement of I made the effort to impress you with my ability to tell the difference between you as an owner or a supervisor or whatever, and me as a person who is coming here requesting a position from you. So, I mean, I've had some people that would come in yoga outfits and things like that, and it just leaves a really bad taste in my mouth. And maybe it's old fashioned, but I prefer someone who dresses up.
I don't think that is too old fashioned.
It's not old fashioned, okay.
I will take, unless you specifically told me, like, I'm in the middle of my job, I'm coming in my scrubs, I'm taking my lunch, I really want to do this, I'm so sorry I'm not going to be able to be in my business here. If you walk in, and I will take note of what do you important to come to this because I am taking so much time out of my busy work life that is shoved into 38 hours a week. That's all I've got to interview you. And I will come as a business professional and that's it. So if you walk in here with flip flops and whatever T-shirt, I'm just saying, even they put that more thought into what it is that we're doing.
I had a staff member who went from a managed care clinic. He was applying for a position at the other clinic. He's already a children's employee. And he showed up in like a suit and vest, and I was like, wow, what are you doing? And he was like, what's an interview? I was like, oh yeah. I was like, you work for me.
I know, I was wondering if you did.
Yeah.
I love him.
He's great.
Oh, you guys stole him from me.
You steal from me. There it is. So I don't know.
It's all good. I totally get it. It's awesome. You would have to be wanted a three-piece suit.
Yeah, he worked for
You can also wear them like a button.
Exactly. And I was like, you know what I mean? Like, I think it's just that, like, attention to detail, the fact that you would acknowledge, like, this is what it is. It's an interview. The other thing, this is like a question from way back, overdone question. The one that I'm kind of getting tired of, if there is one, is work-life balance. I don't know how you guys feel about that. I'm happy to talk to you about that, but to be honest, I don't know you well enough to know what that's going to look like for you. And
They ask you that?
yeah, like how do you guys support work-life balance kind of thing? And it's just a really hard question because I don't think I know you well enough to know even what that would begin to look like. And if you want to talk about like what are the demands of this job, it's a lot of work. It is, our documentation takes a long time. There are all these hospital standards that we have with your team. If you want to go down that road, that's fine. I'm sorry, we got a little way off topic. But that was something that it's like that was just something that I thought to myself, like, just be, I don't know, that's a pet peeve of mine because I don't think I know you well enough to begin to answer that question. And what it looks like for the three of us is so different. And that's why it's such an impossible question to ask. I mean, there's things that we try to do, but
It kind of feels that, I don't like that question either, because to me it feels like a thinly veiled, like, how hard am I gonna have to work kind of question. And, I think I've only been asked that once by an applicant, and I was probably a little abrasive about it, but I told her, I was like, that's not my job, that is your job. Work-life balance is your job, not mine. You can put in as much or as little effort as you want into your work, and then you're gonna reach the benefits of that. And that's all I want to say about those questions.
And really, I think half the time, that's not actually what they're asking me. They're asking me more like, what's hard about this job? And I can talk to you about that all day. It's a hard job. And but I think that to me, that sounds like, I don't know, like wanting to make sure I take care of number one, and I don't know, there's something that's kind of like, okay, just vaguely off. So you're gonna need to work more at first, you know that, right? Like you're gonna be working over 40 hours and I'm only gonna pay you for 40 hours. Like, do you want me to say that? Like, I can't say that, I won't say that. But that's the reality of it, you know what I mean? Like, to really get good at this job, you will work more. And, that's just, we don't want that to be the case forever, but when you're learning something, you need to invest in it. And so I think that's really the thing that I struggle with that question. What are you really trying to get at?
I'm having this conversation. I've never had that question, so now that we have this conversation, ask
If you take me as a
Well, I get it, because I think that for us, it kind of comes from a little bit of a different place, because exactly what you had said earlier is, I did the work. I sold my car. I rode my bike in the snow to do this. I gave every single penny that I have for the past 5 years to get where I am. I deserve to have a great. So that's where our hearts are.
Well,
So-
there's the liability,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, there's a risk associated with it. Like, I think it's just making sure you're, like, teasing, you know, just that kind of a question if you don't want to have to.
I think we're not traveling down.
Yeah, is it too
negative
much?
road?
Oh, no, I don't want to be on a negative road.
We're out of time.
We're
Sorry.
technically out of time, but I
Sorry.
mean, it's, but it's fine. I mean,
I think
people are free to leave it.
Yeah,
I mean,
but
no, I
anybody
say
wants
please.
to
I don't want to like
go.
hold anyone hostage here. They have like things to do.
I really love hiring people.
Yeah.
I love interviewing. Most of the time, it's really, really super fun.
I
get really excited. I get really excited. I really like talking, especially to new grads. Like, one of the questions I get is, why are you hiring new grads? And
Yeah.
I will tell you why I hired new grads, and it's because I have a really different structure at my business, and I've actually found that more well-seasoned therapists don't really like it. And I also think that it's really important to bring new evidence-based practice into my clinic, and that's one of the things that I'm really striving at my clinic. The clinic that I'm on has been in business since 1975, and we were like really stuck in the 80s. And so I'm really trying to pull that out. And so I really invest in, I like to invest my time in teaching new grads and showing you this is the way we're going to do things, and bring your experience, bring your research, add what you've learned, because that's what's best practice, what you've been taught for the past, all the research for the past 10 years. We need to get that in the clinic. I need to know about these different assessments because we don't have them here. And so I get really excited about that. I'm designing programs where I support my team to come up with new ideas. We're building classes. We're getting into the community. We're vending one-on-one. Really excited people to be with us so that we can keep that energy going. So
And that's a good question to ask. Like, what do you guys have going on in this area? You know what I mean? Like, if you're truly passionate about this area, like, do you guys have anything in place to like support my interests? Like, those are good questions to ask as well. What community involvement do you have? And that could be areas of opportunity. If they don't have something, you could be like, oh, just something to think about. Also a very nice diplomatic way to talk about work-life balance.
Mhm.
What do you have going on in the community? What do you guys do anything outside of work together?
yeah, one of the questions that is so funny.
Yeah.
How do you celebrate? Ask them how do you celebrate accomplishments? I used to ask all of my teacher employers that. But I said, how do you celebrate that? Because like if you guys put together a program, what is it that you guys do? And sometimes on the other side of and it gives you some good insight about how they're operating together. I've gotten some really great answers when I was interviewing for other positions. Like, oh, we do a birthday party every single time somebody's birthday. Or, they're like, we do happy hour, or we do those.
When you work for people who like each other, you tend to do stuff together and make sure you perform. I think going back to the work-life balance too, if you have legit reasons that you are, this is my caveat, if you are thinking to yourself, like, I have 3 kids, and, these hours that you have listed, how concrete are they? Like, this is just something I kind of want to throw out there. Like, if you have real reasons for why you that, like, get them out there. And that goes back to the theme you've got being forthright about, like, where you're coming from. Because, it's important to know your priorities, and it's important to know, like, it's important for everybody to know the priorities. And so I think it's just kind of being able to tease that out a little bit. And again, like, the right rationale for your question. And if you're like, I don't know how to ask this, but I like all of
Well
us.
intentioned.
I think all of us would say that one of our biggest concerns is just keeping good people. Like, turnover is a huge problem.
That's hard.
That's really hard.
And then, yeah.
And you get attached to someone and you think that, everything's going great, and then maybe something happens that's outside of their control, or they're not as happy as you were hoping they would be, or whatever. But I think, I think that's like 90% of the questions that I ask is trying to ascertain, is this person going to be a long-term fit? Yes, are they going to be great with kids? I can teach some clinical skills for a new graduate, but what I can't do is make sure that you're happy with the culture of the company. That's I think that's what a lot of those questions really important about.
Or you guys
Yeah.
What is your guys' favorite interview question to ask?
I always
have them in your hand?
I always, this is my favorite because I think it's the most important, ask how much organization do you need to thrive? Because if you are, you shush. If you're like a very A-type person who gets driven crazy by someone who kind of, like my desk is like this big mountain of paper and toys and tape and candy wrappers, like if that's gonna drive you crazy, I don't want you. No matter how, and I know that sounds really harsh, but it doesn't matter how much we like each other and how good of a philosophy and good work relationship we have. If I, as a manager, am going to drive you nuts and you can't manage kind of the level of chaos that we operate in, it's not going to end well for anybody. So that is my number one favorite question. What kind of organization do you need? And then that's kind of that also is, you know, one of the reasons that we do the ride along, and I like you to get a sense of what my car looks like and you know, like how much stuff there is around, because it's important. That comes into like work satisfaction, and you know, there are piles of wood around the clinic and stuff like that. So that's my favorite. And then the other one that I always ask without fail is, how do you like to give and receive feedback? You know, I think it's kind of a generic question, but I like to leave it open-ended and get the sense from people about, you know, are you sensitive? I think that's there's not a wrong answer, but that's another area that I think is really, I'm highly sensitive to whether or not I think a person's being honest there. And it's really important to me that you are honest, because I do tend to be a little bit more blunt and jokey about things. And if that's not how you need to get feedback, if you're very sensitive and you need something very like private, quiet, let's talk about this, how do you feel, how do I feel, I need to know that.
Versus, you know,
Right.
like, you want implement feedback, and that's the stuff that you guys will be able to have a better idea to your field work rotations. You're like, oh, probably the biggest reason I struggle with this person is because they didn't give me feedback in the way it works well for me. Or, you know, they need to feel blah, blah, blah.
And there are things I can change about myself. I cannot change my level of organization. That is not going to change, short of taking a full lot of medication. But I can change the way that I give somebody information. I can tweak that. So there are things I can change about myself. There are things that I can expect an employee to change about themselves. Timeliness, about documentation, or showing up, or you know, whatever you identify as your weakness. But unless you have the conversation about, you know, the things that you can and can't change, there's no point to start from, you know. So, I don't know. What's your favorite question?
My favorite question is, what do you think you can bring to the team to help step therapy maybe to the next level? And I love that question because I'm really super focused on building stuff therapy. And I just have a lot of visions and dreams that are starting to get a little bit on me on them, and I really am investing in team members who want to be a part of something that's bigger than themselves. And I really structured my team, I think, to hopefully trick everybody to think that it's their business, so that they want to work as hard as you want to reap the benefit. And when you win, when the business wins, you win, and that's the way that I have it set up. And in your answer, I can kind of pick out exactly, you know, what it is that you're looking for, and if this is going to be a really good fit. So they're going to have multiple locations. We're shopping for locations, and we're going to build this team, and we're contracting with companies, and it's going to be awesome. And a lot of my therapists have a lot of different ideas, and I really use that, and they build their own programs, and they run them, and they reap the benefit of that. And so what you can bring to the table to a private practice to demonstrate that, I think is really valuable. To show that passion. I get all three. I don't know your comment. We're just going.
I don't know if OT that's
question, go into who mentions this, but like I said, I can be pretty picky. And so, I ask a lot of clinical reasoning questions, and we really develop point people to, you know, I give you a scenario. There's a 15-year-old with CP that comes in after having, you know, single event multiple surgery. Do you even know what that means, first of all? You know what I mean? Like, so you can kind of process, okay, and then, you know, you can ask as many follow-up questions as you want, but what would you do with this person? How long would you intend to see them? What resources would you need? Like, because I think that speaks to your preparedness to step into a role. It gives me a lot of good information about whether or not all of your experiences have, you know, I try not to bring people in front of the team that are just going to flop on these kind of questions. You know, if you're to the point where you're meeting with the team, we have some confidence in your ability to answer this question. But all too often I get very like vague treatment things, and so I'm like, so like, what would you do though? Like, if you had an hour, what would you do with this person? Like, provided they're cooperative human beings, what kind of things would you do? And it's very telling and very interesting to see how people like would work through what they would do. And you know, we really, and similarly, sometimes we'll say, so like, if your next patient was this, you know, like, how would you handle back-to-back tricky patients? You know, like what kind of things help get you through the day? What kind of things like really drive you? I think those are good questions to really get at the heart of like the clinician, and they're hard. They're hard questions, but I think they're really telling in a way about like this is how this person functions in a clinical role. I like asking what people do outside of work. We actually have like a really nice like climbing gym group that was developed like kind of accidentally, and it has absolutely no weight on whether or not we're going to hire you. But I think just kind of getting a better sense of like this person has some other interests. What are they? And it also allows people to kind of like that to just say something that's serious. And I also, again, because I can be picky, I ask a lot about like, so why children? Like, what do you like about children? Again, a question you could research, you could know. What is different about children? What is different about Amy's practice? What's different about Mariah's practice? You could know those things. Do you know them or not? And it's a little cutthroat, and it's a little, like, sometimes I feel like I'm a little bit of a terror when I'm asking these questions, but I would know them. If I were applying, I would for sure know the answer to those questions. So, I feel deep expected somebody else. And really, you know, it's okay to say, like, you know, from what I can glean, you know, like, you know, from what I've been able to see and what I've heard, and, you know, those are all good answers. And whether, you know, that's actually accurate or not is a different story. The fact that you made an attempt, like, high five, you know? So, yeah, I guess. As opposed to like, oh, I just really like the idea of working for like an institution. Well, don't we all? So, you know what I mean? Like, because that's, you know, sometimes you do not, like, when I have to sit and do 2 hours of, like, training that's mostly teams to nursing, I'm not particularly loving working for a big institution. You know what I mean? So there are positives and negatives. Like, what positives do you? Oh, one more thing. Make sure you ask about, along the lines of mentorship, is continuing education available? Do you guys care about that? Like, how do you guys support? Did you guys have to have requirements? No, right? So it is a requirement, as opposed to like when we also med school, it wasn't. So, you know, knowing that that is something that's happening on the radar, how
And
are they planning to support you in that?
maybe have a few more things I'm interested in. But that's something I ask too, is like, what kind of continuing education do you have your eyes on? Where do you want to specialize? Because I don't want just my model. I'm not looking to hire 50 people. I don't want even 5 people who are specialized in SI. Sorry, Susan.
No,
Yeah.
thanks for being our student. And don't forget that you're a field doctorate student, so it's not just your field work, it's your depth, it's your research, it's your management. When I graduated, you love yourself. Thank you guys, appreciate it.
But I would ask, where do you want to specialize? Because I don't want 5 SI therapists. I want someone who's really passionate about feeding, and then maybe another person trying to find a group of people that are better than me at things. You know, I'm not
really passionate about babies, that I want someone working with me who is, so that when I have 5 people working for me, which is kind of what I'm comfortable managing, how can we manage to hit all of the demographics of childhood and people that are passionate about neuro, people that are really into developing like wellness programs or whatever it is. So I think really kind of along those lines, like what kind of CE are you guys doing? Do you bring things in-house? Do you pay anything for people to go? Is there a limit? And make sure say like I'm really, really excited to continue learning. And it's important to me that I get to continue. All right. Oh, yeah. I would like something.
That was actually one of my questions of it to students to ask that in like an initial interview.
I love it.
That along with like, what are your opportunities to be CI? Like, down the road. Is that like looking
I think that's a
to
really
go
good
on
one,
for
because
like,
that really
because
shows
if you have a lot of
that
passion about
want to
learning
grow.
for teaching and teaching for learning and
Right.
kind of that give and take, like, is that something that's too?
No, I think that that's really great, and I really, especially with my love so I think having somebody who is passionate about that is very, very key. I think that that's great. We want to, teach and learn to other people, and that's, practically part of stuff.
I think in general, if there's anything that you're positive about, I wouldn't be afraid to bring it up. If there are things that you're negative about, I would definitely be careful about how you word it. It doesn't mean it's off limits. You just want to be a little cognizant of what you're saying. But like, if you want to take students, or like I, at all of my interviews, asked, what is the expectation about supervising a COTA? Because I wanted to know, am I going to be expected to supervise someone else and sign off on their notes? So it doesn't matter how you feel about that. You just want to know what the expectation is. And taking students, I would be excited to get questions from new graduates about, oh my gosh, they're already thinking forward 2 years to when they could take a student, and they're already thinking forward to how they could start a program or, whatever. How much freedom is there to, start new programs or do camps or groups or whatever. I love that kind of thinking. We're gonna go to dinner, so if you guys we can hang around, or I think like all of our email addresses are.
Yes, I just need yours, Hannah. I was just gonna put up everybody's emails just so if any of the students want to reach out and email you guys about any other questions. We record the lecture too for the students that weren't able to make it here, so they may have some follow-up questions for you guys.
Sure.
But yeah.
But I'm a little embarrassed. I didn't think to say that too, but the deck, that Dr. experiential component is really outstanding. And I just remember that was. We were talking about like, can we take a deck and deck? Yeah, that's a big deal.
And I think especially thinking about like, who knows how many people you're up against. So highlighting that, and not, the only thing I would say having my doctorate that I would be careful about is that just because I have my doctorate does not mean I know anything. But you know what I mean? Like you do know some things that are different, but by no means, if you're interviewing with experienced therapists, like you do not want to say anything that makes their experience less valuable or less worthwhile. You know what I mean? So it's an asset, but just acknowledging the limitations of also not having the experience that the people around you have. And I don't know. There's only one person that I can think of who interviewed and was doctor this, and my patients called me, I am doctor, and I was like, okay, like that's fine. I'm officially turned off, but you know what I mean? I was like, gosh, okay, we're like really putting a lot of weight on this. Like, so I was trying to like dig a little deeper, and it's recognizing that it's everything all together. It's a package deal.
And I would say it wouldn't necessarily be a bad idea to have a diplomatic answer prepared about why you went for a doctorate and what you think that's going to have. That's just something you don't want to be caught off guard with and use the wrong kind of verbiage with a bunch of people who probably don't have a doctorate who are thinking about maybe hiring you. It's maybe practice it with a significant other. If you want to ask them about how you would receive your answer to a question like that, I'm sure we'd be happy to practice with you. But that's something, like, pretty much if I'm interviewing a new graduate and they're throwing.
They'd have that
In
in.
classes, it's like a required, like, for one of our classes, for us this semester, it's an extra credit opportunity to videotape yourself answering that question. And you're in like the scenario sets you up to, it's something like you're a fieldwork student and you are asked, like, why a doctorate? I don't see like any difference in you in comparison to any of my other master's preparing students. Like, why do you feel like a doctorate was necessary? And so that you have to kind of go through and make your answer. So it's kind of interesting, but yeah, we've had it, which is good, but still, I think like the more you can practice, the better.
Yeah, I think so, and just being really solid in how you answer and keeping that sense of humility too, because I mean, really, when you get out, you know so much and you know so little, and being able to balance that, I think, is it's nice as an employer and as like for your coworkers to be able to say this person has a good head on their shoulders. They're confident in their abilities, but they're not afraid to say, I don't know, or I need some help with this. The two things that really have turned me off in the past couple months in terms of interviewing have been people that have expected way too much too soon based on really nothing. So, you know, I don't really care about the degree as much as I care about how you present yourself and your passion and how you represent the company. I don't care about the degree, and I don't really care about the fact that you want full-time at a management track fresh out of school. If that's not an option, and there's a little, I think, I'm technically a millennial, so take this really nicely, like, when everybody talks about millennials, I think that's one of the biggest complaints is that there's sometimes a sense that I get to skip the queue. That, you know, even because I have this fancy degree or I did this fancy deck or those things are impressive, it doesn't mean that you automatically go into full-time supervisory management. You still have to show that you're an asset to whatever community you enter. Would you say that's accurate? And
I think humility is very important, but you don't want to sell yourself short.
No, don't sell yourself short.
But
But
I totally get it.
yeah, a little
There's
bit.
a lot of time defending millennials. And I think honestly there is a big difference between people who choose to pursue professional education at the level that you have and those that don't. So,
And I'm not bashing millennials.
no.
Okay,
But I get, in meetings, I get made fun of. I'm by far the youngest person in leadership and I get made fun of a lot for live with the careers. And so
the younger people coming out right now, like you guys have incredible ideas. You're super passionate. Everybody's got this focus of like, it seems like everyone has a feeling that they could be the next whoever. You know, like I could have this excellent idea and create this, and I could, and it's super exciting. And those are the kind of people that I want because I eventually want someone to buy me out, you know, and then I would like that company to be my legacy, buy me out, make it better. You know, it's exciting to me to see people that have that sense of confidence that I can do this. And I just think it needs to be tempered with a little bit, I can do this, but not the day after graduation, right?
this is like the energy behind what you want to do is just that. Like if other stuff happens, terrific. But if not, you will be happy in your role treating kids or adults and doing what you want to for. So I haven't had anybody actually ask like, what can I find for ladder?
Oh gosh, I offered a girl a job, very clear that it was part-time, very clear. Offered her, she said, yes, I have to work for you, this is the job I want, it's amazing, it's incredible, I have to do this. Called her, offered her the job, and I got like a 2-page email about, great, thanks for the opportunity. These are my questions. When will I be on the management track? When will I be full-time? When will I have benefits? What is the paid vacation like? And I was like, this is a person. We talked about this, that it's part-time, that it, so, I mean, I don't get a lot of that, like how can I climb the ladder, but I definitely have gotten more of it in the past year than I have before, of like, kind of this very pushy, like, how can I do more? And I don't mind it worded the right way.
Yeah.
If someone is like, I'm really ambitious and I'm super excited about this, and I would love to talk to you about da 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 da. But what I offered this gal, these are great questions. They're very interesting. As we discussed, it's part-time. Those opportunities are not available at least for a year. If you're serious about it, let's get you on track to come with me and do the administrative part. I'll teach you about the bookkeeping part. I'll teach you about the scheduling, and then you can get a sense of what it's going to take, productivity-wise, to get you to where you want to be. And she declined. Like, I'm not interested in that. So it's something that I struggle with because I do like that passion and that drive. I see that in my, like, when I see that kind of person, I'm like, oh, you're just a little me. Where I was like, I don't need to work. I'm just going to start a practice, you know. But I still think, that there's a time to like learn from somebody else. Yeah, I'm exaggerating, but no. It's not. I have known each other for a very, very long time, and she knows I'm prone to hyperbole. But you know, I like that. But when you're offered, if that's really what you want, if you're offered the opportunity to do something that you want, maybe not the way you want it, take the opportunity. You know, if somebody, like if that gal had said, yes, pay me half my hourly therapy rate, half the rate you're paying me to see kids, I will come in and learn all of the office work and help with productivity in other areas, whatever you need. I probably wouldn't, it's not like I would have used her like a servant, you know, I wouldn't take her up on all of that, but I would have been really excited to have someone that passionate and that kind of forward thinking, because what that shows me is you're not just thinking about your own comfort in the here and now, but the reason that you're asking for this stuff is because you're thinking 10 years into the future without me asking you where you see yourself in 10 years. Do you know what I mean? So that's what I would encourage you guys to do, is just always be the person who has solid goals. Write down a 1-year goal, a 5-year goal, a 10-year goal. I don't remember. I've always had those goals.
Maybe do that like 3 times.
But don't just write it, remember it. Like, absorb it, live it, and then when somebody asks you a question or you have a question, ask it in a way that's like, this is my 10-year goal, so, you know, is the question I'm asking or what I'm willing to do in this company going to get me to that 10-year goal? And if the answer is no, maybe it's not the right decision.
And just as a caveat, it's really hard for me to think about that. Like, I'm just not somebody that, I'm pretty gray, I'm very, like, I don't know what I'm going to be, you know what I mean? So I have a really hard time with that. But I think being able to have some goals, like some things I definitely know I wanted to accomplish, like, it's just hard to know. And to be perfectly honest, I did not expect to be in a management role where I am. You know what I mean? It was like opportunities presented themselves, and you know, I was like shaped and molded by a really good mentor who helped me get to a point where I actually felt like I could apply for the position. I would never have thought that. You know what I mean? So just like having some ideas is really nice, and if people do tend to ask the 1, 5, 10 questions, so it's good to have like something to say, but you don't necessarily have to hold yourself to it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I was doing this by 5 years, like, if life takes you a different path, you know, like, that's fine.
Yeah, and it can be as simple as like, in 5 years, I would like to have, you know, done at least 4 different continuing education courses in different areas to solidify what I want to do, like the direction I want to be. I want to narrow down my interests, or I want to start taking the steps to specialize. Like, I don't think it really matters, even if it's just I want to have a car that, you know, is whatever. Like, I don't know. Whatever your goals are, but I do think it's important to keep them in mind.
Keep them in mind, yeah. It's just something that's super hard for me, and I feel like my life has taught me that all of my goals are a little off. So, and they're always better.
Well, my goals
but things are always better than I ever would have hoped they would have been. So I think that's really just my experience and why I struggled so much with that question, because I just do not, I'm a go-getter, but I'm very in the moment. And so I have a hard time thinking.
Well, I haven't met any of my goals. Just so you know, they just changed. but I've never
That's
actually
as long as
led
you're still
them.
moving forward.
Yeah, but I think
You
it's
started your
just want to have a
started your
benefit.
business.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's true, that was a goal. Yeah, that was a big one. So much, I've met one of my goals. But, yeah, the rest of them have all changed, so we're just like, yeah, we're done. We're done. We're done, but you guys can hang out and talk if you want to, but, yeah. Or if you
I do have little
business.
business cards. I'm so excited about them. I'm so proud of you. So if anybody wants any, there are some. And if you want to give them to your classmates, whatever, you can do that as well. I do take students. I do cater to students in the States. So let me clarify that. I did get some emails from the state program. But I am taking students who are here in Colorado. So I just wanted to clear that up.
I use rotation as an extended interview process, just so you know, and I think a lot of providers probably do. Is that why you take them state?
Say that again.
I like to take students with the hope that they are
Oh,
going to stay and work for me.
Oh, yeah. I mean, man, if you want to work.
Yeah.
I don't want to prolong this, but that was going to be one of my questions is, can you address kind of the, well, what you know versus who you know versus who knows you versus how you
I
fit in?
think networking is, I've always said,
Yeah, okay.
even before, business owner networking is going to be amazing for you. So, and I think that just like that one individual that I said before, who reached out to me and started and initiated the networking process, I mean, she did really great for herself. She came in and demonstrated to me that, you know, she really wants to work for me. This is where her heart is. And in our last little meeting, she was just like, I work for you PRN, I work for you full time, I work for you, whatever you need to show where her heart is. So, and yeah, if you have the opportunity to go to OTAC, if you have the opportunity to go to any community, like continuing education courses, that's awesome. You know, go out and talk to people. Therapy land is very small. And therapy land is even smaller when you talk to people just in boutique. And so it's very important, I think,
I do too. I think for me, like for my setting, I've interviewed people that I've worked with before. So the who you know part they had. If you can't demonstrate basic proficiency, I don't care who you know or who knows you or who thinks you're great or how good your personality is. There has to, and I even will say, like, I can teach you a skill. I can, but I can't teach someone how to, like, critically think. Problem solving is a little hard to teach. A skill is teachable, but, like, I definitely would say what you know is pretty important. That's probably more on the top end. But I do think, like, I don't know, it's a hard question because your reputation in the community is important. So
I think it's both. I mean, because if someone had come to me and said, you know, they have no experience in this at all, you know, that's something I'm going to pay attention to that. You know, so what you know is really important. So, but that's not to say, you know, if you're doing a career change, you have someone on my team who's doing a complete career change. And so she needs a lot more mentorship, but, you know, she came in and did the shadowing and talked really well. So there's that important part as well.
Hannah's like, what you know. That's
Education like that's so different for how big children live.
Yeah. And I can, again, speak to PT instead of OT. We have been the most impressed with people who are like, hey, I'm super interested in working here for a really good reason. I'm gonna go, you know, if there's not a position available now, like keep me in the future, like that. So in networking in that regard, we like to, our students are people we keep in touch with if they have shown that they're interested in, you know, having positions moving forward. But I think in terms of who you know, it's not really who you know. I think it's the degree to how well they know you, and know what, and you trust that, hey, this is a person who is like, you know, going to take every opportunity they have and run with it, but, you know, in a
evidence-based direction. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's just the kind of stuff where the relationship that you have with your CI and your mentors, like that, I think is almost, because when they will be called upon, so say, you know, you're at one site, you may have a position there for years, but up north does, or south does. And so being able to call upon them to say like, hey, what do you think about this person? Do you think this would be a good fit for our team? Do you think it's not? The other thing is that teams are very different. When we work for a really large institution, you know, there are people in some locations that function really well together, but they may want to move or relocate, and that doesn't mean they get the job. You know, because what we really care about team dynamics, we care about what, you know, moving forward is going to lead to a successful clinic, and personality is a part of that. So I would say getting to know your CIs and having to get to know you and your capacity is really probably the most important thing for us. And we don't do as much as we should. I mean, it's just something that I think is, for whatever reason, just seems to be necessary. For whatever reason, it's just a little bit of a challenge to figure out like our place within it, because we are such a big network as it is. So I think in terms of like the APTA and things like that, that we do the networking within that. So being active in your professional organization is also a really good way to make sure that you're in enough to with everything and meeting the people who are doing the stuff you want to be doing. And like settings, you discuss things. Like we have a pediatric setting, we have like a acute care setting. Yeah. Your ears are probably upsetting all along.
Very appreciative of all the
Yeah, seriously.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Very fun. I was really out of the office.
Like stare at my computer.
Well, and I'm like in the thick of hiring, you know, so this is kind of like all too poignant.
No, it's just exactly what we're doing.
And like, I'm really glad that Hannah could come because, you know, she only interviews PTs. That the reality is a lot of times when you go into like a rehab center or a hand therapy clinic, a PT is going to be your manager and your hiring person, your contact. So I think it's important too that we have really different perspectives and things that we look for. And I don't think it's just from like the size of the structure and just system thinking and what we prioritize professionally is just different. So it's good to know, I think, a different perspective. So we are going to go to dinner. If anyone would like to join us, I would be happy if any of you would like to come and extend this conversation. Is that okay? But otherwise, you can email us. So, right. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. Yeah, I just have the password.
I went into the other one first, and the other one, the messenger.
No, you're fine. They were free to come and go. Hopefully they all knew that. They weren't held hostage. But yeah, no, it's fine. We loved it. I think like everybody was engaged throughout. I think if it was really that big of a problem, they would have known. No, you're fine. And no one has class tonight, so you're fine. Bye, guys. Bye. Oh, I was like, why am I seeing her Friday? And I just remembered.
Clearly, people are not happy with this.
What's up with that?